Hi, Aubrey. How's it going?
I'm great, Jessica. How are you?
Good. We were just talking about how to keep our brains active, guys. And this would actually be good for IELTS students if you get the New York Times puzzle app because it's free. And there are word puzzles in there every day to do. I do these every day. There's Wordle, and there's like three new ones that are so fun. There's one called Letterbox, and you have to use all of the letters following these rules to make words. I don't know. It sounds
I
so
love it. I
dorky,
think
but
that's
it's so
such a
fun.
great idea for making vocabulary fun. You're going to be learning
Yeah.
tons of new words, and it's a game, right? Keep it interesting,
Totally, totally. So there's our plug for the New York Times
right?
puzzle app. Guys, I want to remind you before we get to the meat of today's episode, which is about how to identify your English level and what that means about your IELTS score. Great question, great topic today. We have a lot of fun advice for you guys. But I want to call your attention to a couple recent episodes we've done because when Aubrey and I finished both of these episodes, we're just like, oh wow, that was really good.
That was a really good
Aubrey,
episode.
I know. What two recent episodes should our listeners go back to?
Yeah, first is 1328. It was called Don't Use Get on IELTS. We've heard from so many students like this, we need this because it's really easy to use band 6 vocabulary, but it takes a little bit of work to find all of the higher scoring words and get them in context with example sentence. So we did all of the work for you in that one,
Yeah.
guys. If you missed it, scroll up 1328. Fantastic vocabulary episode.
So good. And just yesterday's episode, guys.
Yes, was so good. If we
Well,
don't say
actually, no, not yesterday, because now this episode's coming out on Friday. So Tuesday's episode, the last episode we did, 1333, came out on Tuesday. Why slowing down gets higher speaking scores. Some people, maybe you only listen to podcasts on the weekend. That's why we are now publishing our second episode of the week on Fridays today. But guys, if you missed Tuesday's episode, go back and listen to that because there is such great advice for how to slow down on speaking and why you should. Why exactly does that help your speaking score? So go back and listen to the last episode if you haven't already.
Yes, and if you missed either of those, you're probably not following. So be sure to
Mm.
hit follow on the podcast so they just drop right into your queue. It makes it so much easier.
Perfect. Okay. With that out of the way, let's get to today's question. Awesome question. A listener wrote in. Aubrey, can you read that?
Yes, so they said, I'm about to start studying for the IELTS test, which I'd like to take not much after March 2024. But since I don't have a score to start with, because this would be my first time taking the test, I don't know what to expect from the results due to my lack of experience. But I know that I want the highest score possible, hopefully more than an 8,
Wow.
since I want to apply for a work visa for another country. Amazing. What do you think is a likely result for me the first time after studying with your program? Thanks in advance for your response.
Okay, awesome question. I love it. I love it. Yeah. I know this is really tough, right? Because like how do you know what you would get on IELTS, especially when it comes to speaking and writing? So, we will focus on speaking and writing in the second half of today's episode. But first, let's talk about listening and reading because these are the two that you can definitely find out what score you would get because there's practice tests, right? You just mark the answers wrong or correct, and then you count up the number of correct answers, and that gives you a band score. So that part's easy.
Exactly, right? You can take practice tests for listening, get your score right away. Take a practice test for reading, get your scores right away, right? We recommend Cambridge practice test books, and there's also a free website, IELTSwriting.info. So these are really good resources so that you can know what you'd get if you took the test today on listening and reading.
Yeah, and be careful about free practice tests, guys. We've talked about this recently, actually. We had an episode about where to get free graded practice tests a couple weeks ago. Check that one out too. Guys, see, you got to hit follow. There's just so many good episodes. You can't miss any. IELTS IELTS-writing.info. That website used to be IELTSexam.net. Both addresses take you to the same place now. Um, but there are some great free reading and listening practice tests on there. So that is really the only free one that we recommend. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, to get valid IELTS test material that is written by experts with the correct question types and all of that stuff, guys, that needs to be done by an expert, right? Who gets paid for that. So the Cambridge practice test books, that's the classic one. That's the best resource for practice exams.
And if you are taking those exams and not getting the scores you need, it's due to a lack of strategies. You guys hear that from us a lot. Here on the podcast, we're teaching lots of strategies for the listening exam, for the reading exam. And of course, you can get into our course, Three Keys IELTS, to learn all of those strategies so that you can improve your scores on both of those tests.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you are just starting studying and you don't know where you're at on IELTS, take some practice tests. If you
Yeah,
see that you're getting like a 5 or a 6 on listening and reading and you need like this person, you need like an 8, you're going for the PR, then you need some strategies, right? Cuz maybe
yeah,
your English level is higher than that. You're like, "Why am I only getting a 5 on reading?
exactly.
I am good at English." It's just a lack of strategies, right? So,
Yep.
you need to know the test.
Yeah. So go to allersenglish.com/keys to get all those strategies, guys.
All right, so let's get into the trickiest part of this. Let's talk about speaking first. How can a student diagnose their own speaking score?
Yeah, this is a really tricky one. A lot of our episodes here can be really good resources for you guys. So, for example, just recently we did one, the difference between 7 and 8 for speaking, where we really dove into the speaking scoring system so that you could really understand what you need to do to score a 7, what you need to do to score an 8. Because once you
Mhm.
understand that speaking system, then you can answer these sample questions and sort of gauge what score you would get.
Because you can find the IELTS public band descriptors. Just Google that for speaking and writing. You can find those, but understanding what they mean is a whole other matter, right? So,
Right?
yeah, go back and listen to episode 1327, the difference between a 7 and 8 for speaking. But we've done a ton of episodes about speaking score. So, go back in our catalog, guys. Aubrey's done some fantastic episodes with real Three Keys students where they do a live speaking test. What's the last one you did?
Yeah, the most recent one was IELTS Energy 1305, live IELTS speaking test with student Mo. How did I think you did this
Mio?
one actually? Mio, yes. And we've done so many where we will give them a live speaking test and then give them feedback, give them their scores. So you can use this as a basis of comparison against your answers to figure out where your scores would be.
And on our YouTube channel on IELTS Energy TV, guys, we have a series where we did some video speaking exams, some mock speaking tests with students. Lindsay was the examiner, and then I give all the feedback about the scores and stuff. So go to IELTS Energy TV and look for those. Okay, awesome. Now, what about writing? How can students give themselves an IELTS writing score?
I know, right? You can, though. You can get an IELTS question and then turn off all corrections in your word processing program or the app you're using. Type for 40 minutes. And the first thing to check is were you able to get 250 to 280 words, right? If not, it's 5 or below.
Mhm.
If you did, then you're looking at 6 or higher.
Yeah. So that's like one little way, you can
Mhm.
start to understand what score you might get. And then you can go ahead and turn back on the correction program and whatever you're using, where it corrects the grammar and spelling, and just count the mistakes. And again, guys, this is not an exact science here.
Right.
These are just recommendations. So, like, do you see a lot of corrections? You know what I mean? Let's say you have corrections in almost every sentence, 5 or lower. You're gonna get probably. Do you have about 10-ish corrections in the whole essay? Maybe you might be able to get a 6. Do you have about 5 corrections in the whole essay, then maybe you can get a 7 or higher. So those are just a couple ways you can start to diagnose maybe what score you would get. But that would just be for task 2. You know, task 1 is graded totally differently. It is really almost impossible to give yourself a score for writing task 1 and task 2 for IELTS.
Right, this is really tricky because that can't really take into account the linking phrases you need.
Yeah.
The template sentences, is your opinion there, right? There are a
Yeah.
lot of things that just can't be gauged. So the more you're listening to our podcast, the more you get strategies, you'll know what to look for, right? You can also get band descriptors for the writing essays and you can
Yeah.
see what the examiner's looking for. Do you have that in your essay? You can get a good idea of what you would score.
Exactly. And 2 more episodes that you guys should check out that we've done recently, because you can compare your writing to a Band 9 model essay. Just compare and see how they're different. Compare and contrast. See how close you are to getting the right numbers in task 1, to having specific ideas and good vocabulary in task 2. So recently, guys, we did IELTS Energy 1322, where we gave you a sample Band 9 Task 2 essay. And then IELTS Energy 1326, we gave you a model Band 9 Task 1 IELTS essay. So check those out, guys. But overall, you know, if you know your English level, you can get guess. You can have an educated guess about what score you'd get. Like if you're a lower intermediate student, probably around a IELTS 5 intermediate, around IELTS 6 upper intermediate, around IELTS 7 advanced, around IELTS 8 or 9. So that's how they are connected.
So I have a question for you, Jessica, for our listeners. If a student figures out they're like, okay, I'm lower intermediate right now today, I would probably score a 5. If they
Mhm.
sign up for 3 Keys IELTS and get all of the strategies and the template sentences and vocabulary, what potential do they have to score on IELTS?
I would say if they do the 60-day study plan in 3 keys and they do everything on it, because it improves your English at the same time. So by the time you finish that course, you won't have lower intermediate English. You'll be at least
Right.
an intermediate level and you'll have all the testing skills. So I would say if you do the 60-day plan, you could probably get a 7. If you do everything on there, you know, put the time in and the work, you could get a 7.
Yes, absolutely right. That's what I think a lot of students don't realize how much just having a study plan and getting those strategies can boost your scores. You don't have to feel hopeless if you're like, today, right now, I would get a 5. You do have potential to boost those scores, but it does take strategies. And if you can get feedback from us on your speaking and writing,
Yeah.
then you know what you would get on test day and you can go in with confidence knowing you'll get the score you need.
And everyone gets feedback in our courses now,
Yeah.
even in the basic level. So, guys, check that out, allearsenglish.com/KEYS. We've mentioned a lot of great recent past episodes today. So, listen a couple times, make notes, and go back and listen to those episodes. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in today, our new publishing day on Friday, and we'll be back again next Tuesday.
Awesome. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.